Hi, this is Editor Troxel. In previous tutorials, we've talked a lot about how to add something new to the timeline, such as adding a new event to the timeline, adding a new effect to the event, adding a new marker to the timeline, but we haven't really talked about removing things very much. So in this tutorial, we want to look at how do we remove things. Generally speaking, if we can add it, we can remove it. And so when we add it, we typically use the .add command. And in this one, we're going to be using the .remove command. So let's see how this will work on various items. First, I want to look at a small project that I've created here. It just has 3 tracks. And so we have a track 1, a track 2, and a track 3. And on this track, we have several events. So you can see we have the first event selected here. It has a velocity envelope on it, and then here it has an effect added, just a Gaussian blur, so we can see the preview screen shows it's blurred. And then here we have a couple of markers on the timeline, and so we're going to go through and delete several of these things. So let's look at the code involved. Here's our project we're going to look at. First thing I'm going to do is look at the markers. I'm going to get my marker is from myvegas.project.markers, and we're going to get the first marker, which is marker 0. And then we're going to go through myvegas.project.markers, and then we're going to use the .remove, and then we're going to pass it that marker. Now for every one of these, I'm now going to do a myvegas.update UI so that the screen will refresh, and then I'm going to pop a message box up saying what has just been happening. So here we say the first marker has been removed, and we will see that when we run the script. The next thing, I'm going to get my video event, which I just called the event, and it's a video event from myvegas.project.tracks0.events0. So the first track, the first event, and then I'm going to get the envelope that is on that event. So we go to vevent.envelopes.0. And then I'm going to go to the video event.envelopes, and this time we're going to say .remove and pass it that envelope. Then we'll update the screen and pop the message box up. Same thing with the effect. From the video event, we're going to look at effects and get effect 0, which is the first one. And then the video event.effects.remove, and we pass it that effect. Now I want to get rid of a track. So let's get rid of the third track, which is empty. And to get the third track, we go to myvegas.project.tracks, and it's 2, which is the third track. And then we go to myvegas.project.tracks.remove. We pass it that track, and then we'll say that the third track was removed. Now we know that our events can be grouped together by default. When we add a new clip to the timeline, we get a video event and an audio event, and they are grouped together. So let's move back to get the actual track event from our video event. So this is a track event now, not a video event, event, and then we get it from converting our video event to a track event. Then our track event group, which I just called EG for event group, is event.group. And then in the event group, we remove that event. So that's a way we can ungroup events that have been grouped. Then let's look here at myvegas.project.tracks.0.events.remove. And we're going to remove that actual first event. Remember, we got the event right here. So the events to remove once a track event. So we'll just use that right here, and that will remove the event. So that first event will be removed from the track. Then we're going to take that a little bit farther and go through a loop and try to remove all of the events on that track. So we go to track. My track is myvegas.project.tracks is 0, the first track. And then for each track event, which I just called my event in mytrack.events, we're going to tell it to mytrack.events.remove that event. And so you would think that would go through and remove every event on that track, but we'll see what actually happens. So we'll pop this message box that says we looped forward using a for each to remove events from the track. Now we're going to do the same thing, only going backwards. So for integer I equals mytrack.events.count minus 1. As long as I is greater than or equal to 0, subtract 1. And then we're going to get the track event. This event equals mytrack.events and the ith event. And then mytrack.events.remove this event. And then we're going to pop up the message loop backwards to remove the events from track. We'll see what the difference between this method and this method is. So here we are back in Vegas. Remember, we have two markers on the screen. Our first task is going to be to remove this first marker. So let's go to Tools, Scripting, Run Script. And you will notice this first marker has now been removed. Then we click on OK. Now you'll notice the envelope that was on this first event has been removed. Now you'll notice the FX button no longer shows an effect on this first event, and the preview screen has cleared up. Now you'll see that the third track has been removed from the timeline. Now this first event is no longer grouped with the audio event underneath it, even though we can't really see it on the timeline at the moment. If we did not have this box up, we could select somewhere else and then select this event, and you would notice that it is now not grouped with this audio event. And then we removed that event from the timeline. And remember, that was the one that only removed that one event. And now we're going to go through the loop that goes forward to remove all events from the first track. Okay, it's gone through the loop, and it's removed everything in the for each going forward to remove everything from that first track. But you'll notice that there are still every other event on that first track. That's because going through the for each loop forward, you're only going to process every other event, because every time it removes one, then it shoves everything farther to the left. And so when it deleted the first event, then the second event became the first event, and it moved to the second event. Then it deleted the second event, and the third event became the second event, and then it moved to the third event. So by going forward, it is only getting every other event. To actually remove everything, you need to go backwards. So let's see what happens when we go backwards through the backward loop. Notice this time it looped backwards, and it got every one of them instead of every other ones of the remaining ones. So sometimes removing items is just as important as adding items. So in this case, we have learned how to go through list and remove things. Remember, if you want to remove all of them, you've got to go through the list backwards. Otherwise, you're going to risk just catching every other one. Is it possible to do it going forward? Yes, but you're going to have to do some workarounds to do it. So it's just much easier to go through them backwards. So I hope this tutorial helps you and you find it useful. Let me know what tutorials you'd like to see in the future, and subscribe and like, and we'll see you in the next tutorial. Please sign up at www.JETDV.com and subscribe on YouTube to get further notifications on when new videos are presented.